This is how I press it.
Hey besties, thank you for tuning into our wonderful, quirky, extra video presentation.
Yes.
Today, we're going to discuss about the customs of the Tagalog. We're going to explore a little bit more about the early Philippine history. Enjoy!
The chiefs, who are also known as datos, ruled over a place of few people or 100 houses that are called a barangay in Tagalog. There were many of these barangays in each town. On account of wars, they did not settle far from one another. They were not a subject to each other, except in friendship and relationships. The chief in their various wars helped one another with their respective barangays. In addition to these chiefs who corresponded to our knights, there were three castes: the noble, the commoners, and the slaves. The nobles, are also known as maharlika, are freedmen. They don't pay tax and tribute to the dato. Moreover, when the dato went upon the water, those whom he summoned would row for him. If building a house, they would help him and had to be fed up for it.
Commoners or aliping namamahay are part of a living structure. But commoners have their own house, they are married, they also cannot be sold to other datos, and they have their own properties and goals, which is they can inherit with their children. The commoners' children can inherit their father's rank, which they cannot be made slaves or alipings and gigiling. But if commoners handled the sons' hands of their master, and the master's sons will dwell into another village, there's possible that the master's sons could not be taking them to their native village, and the commoners will remain to their native village and doing serve to other master and cultivating soiled land.
Those born with parents who were maharlikas will forever be a maharlika. If it happens to change that they become slaves, it is through marriage.
Hold on on that. Hold on.
If maharlikas had children among their slaves, the children and the mothers become free. If one of them had children by a slave woman of another, she was compelled when pregnant to give her master half of the gold tael. In this case, half of the child was free, belonging to his father, and if the father did not support the child will be later become a slave.
That should be illegal.
If a free woman had children by a slave, they were all free, provided he were not her husband. If two persons married, one a maharlika and the other a slave, the children were divided. The first, third, and the fifth child, whether male or female, belonged to the father, while the second, fourth, and the sixth belonged to the mother. In this manner, if the father were free, those who belonged to him were also free. If he were a slave, all those who belonged to him were slaves. Same with those who belonged to their mother. If he is an only child, he was half free and half slave. If there were odd number of children, let's say 9, the ninth one was free and half slave.
They're so different.
Maharlikas after marriage could not move from one village to another or from one barangay to another without paying a certain fine of gold. Failure to pay might result in war between the barangay where the person left and the barangay which he entered. This applied equally to men and women. In the case of dowries, they are given by the men to the women's parents. If the parents that received the dowry died, and the dowry has not been consumed, it will be divided like the rest of their estate, equally among children. But the father could always add something for their daughter. If a woman becomes a wife and has no family at the time of her marriage, then she enjoys the dowry all for herself. While unmarried women cannot own property in land or dowry, for the result of all their labors accrues to their parents. Dowries can be given immediately by the fathers to the parents of their son's future wife. even when both are only children. If the contract is violated, there will be a heavy fine. In case the son or daughter is unwilling to marry after the death of the parents, the dowry shall be returned. If the parents live and the son or daughter is unwilling to marry, they have to pay a fine, for it is assumed that it was the parents' plan to separate the children. In the case of divorce, if a wife leaves the husband to marry another and has no children at the time of their divorce, all her dowry and an equal additional amount goes to the husband. In case the woman left the husband and did not marry another, the dowry will be returned. If the husband left the wife, only half of his dowry will be returned. If he has children at the time of the divorce, all the dowry and fine will be given to the children and will be held for them by their grandparents or other responsible relatives.
The Tagalogs worshipped a lot of idols. The sun, the moon, well for some are the stars which they do not know by names.
What? No.
Excluding the morning star which they called Tala. They also knew about the 7 little goats and so much more. However, among these idols, there was one called Bathala, which they specially worshipped the most. The title of this idol signifies all-powerful or maker of all things. Apart from that, they also worship the devil in front of an idol by placing a good piece of cloth doubled over the idol and over the cloth a chain or a large gold ring, as they worship the devil without having the need to see him.
We are going to pretend we didn't hear that.
Their manner of offering sacrifice was to proclaim a feast and offer to the diva what they had to eat.
To really sit down and analyze what we just watched.
This was done in front of an idol, which they anoint with fragrant perfumes such as musk and civet, or gum of the storax tree and other odoriferous woods, and praise it in poetic songs sung by the officiating priest. So, the reasons for offering this sacrifice and adoration were in addition to whatever personal matters there might be: the recovery of a sick person, the prosperous voyage of those embarking on the sea, a good harvest in the soul lands, propitious results in wars, a successful delivery in childbirth, and a happy outcome in married life. If this took place among people of rank, the festivities lasted 30 days.
Silagan are considered witches and Catanduanes who preys on anyone who dressed in white. They tear the liver and eat it afterwards.
I'm a pterodactyl.
The Okluban is also considered a witch who could kill anyone simply by pointing a finger at him and without using any potion. It could destroy a house by merely saying so. The Okluban appear as a very old, crooked woman.
Hell. Go to hell.
Manggagayama. They made charms for lovers out of herbs, stones, and wood, which would infuse the heart with love. Thus, they deceived the people, although sometimes, through the intervention of the devil, they gained their ends. Today, the Gayoma is known as a Filipino love spell to help the love life of those with lonely or broken hearts. Magtatangal. Its purpose was to show at night to many persons, without its head or entrails. In such wise, the devil walked about, carried or pretended to carry its head to different places, and in the morning, it turned on its body, remaining before as alive. According to the folklore, It is a detached female head capable of flying about on its own. As it flies, the stomach and entrails dangle below it. It preys on pregnant women with an elongated proboscis like tongue. Oswang is equivalent to a sorcerer. They say that they have seen it fly, and that it murdered men and ate their flesh.
Never been my thing, not into it, so not approved by.
Their manner of burying the dead was as follows. The deceased was buried beside his house. If he were a chief, he was placed beneath a little house or porch which they constructed for this purpose. Before interring him, they mourned him for 4 days and afterwards laid him on boat which served as a coffin or bier, placing him beneath the porch which guard kept over him by a slave. If the deceased had been a warrior, a living slave had tied beneath his body until in this way he died. In course of time, all suffered decay, and for many days the relatives of the dead man bewailed him, singing dirges and praises of his god qualities until they word of it. You know that there was another life of birth which they called Maka, a paradise. In other words, village of rest. They say that those who go to place are just and valiant, those who live without doing harm, or who possess martial virtues. They said also that in the other life and mortality there was a place of punishment, grief, and affliction called Kasanaan, which was a place of anguish. There were also other pagans who confessed more clearly to a hell.
That's crazy! That's crazy!
We all know that we believe in ghosts. How the people of the past think when it comes to things they do not fully understand. And during that time, it was common to believe in supernatural stuff because science was still not advanced during that time. And as ironic as it is, science and things to science were considered taboo, and it was usually being solved by burning that person at the stake, publicly. So what this means is that we should be thankful of the advances humanity has on culture, that we are no longer in the dark ages of humanity. We are now in the modern age, and history serves as a reminder of the things humans have done in the past that are either brutal or morally questionable. And it gives us a reminder to be thankful that today's everyday life is different from the past. Tradition is one of the things all countries have. And whether they admit it, if it is somewhat cringy compared to the modern day tradition they have like now. Like remembering the most cringiest thing you did when you were still a child, and regretting what you ever did in the first place. Nevertheless, learning about the history of our culture make it possible to value the culture we have right now in modern times. Some culture in the past of certain countries may even be considered stranger. It may also be brutal, but learning our culture's history, we can be aware of changes and be thankful of the changes that were made. But it does not mean that we should blame our ancestors of the past. They were living in accordance in what they believed during those times, where science and technology was not a luxury they could have. So beliefs connecting to nature and the supernatural were commonplace. Learning history gives us an opportunity to know about how the people of the past lived and how they built civilization that later turned into a modern day country. You can also learn how they did to uphold justice and how to assign roles where everyone has a part to play in order to make your society work.
It's remarkable. It's actually remarkable.
Hope you've enjoyed watching the video. Thank you so much for watching. Keep safe. Love y'all.